Welcome to the Martial Lifestyle. My name is Danny. I'm your host. I've been a 23-year martial artist and am a 6th-degree black belt in my chosen art style. This is the show where we talk all things martial arts, and today I have got a doozy for you. So buckle up and let's have a discussion. So today's topic is going to be junior black belts. Do you believe that it's okay, or do you believe that that is a total disgrace to all of martial arts? That is the argument I have seen on the internet, on many open forums from many different martial artists, and I just want to throw down my opinion into the mix. There's several different styles of martial arts that will either not promote till a certain age, and then on the other end, there are schools that will promote at a certain age of childhood. So let's discuss what's viable and what's not. The initial reaction that I have seen with children getting their black belts is they're not old enough to be a black belt. There's no way that kid could take down an adult. And martial arts is all about self-defense, so there's no way they can merit a child with being a black belt. I'm going to give you my opinion in just a minute, but I want to go through kind of a rundown of the arguments against child black belts, and then I'll get into the arguments for child black belts. So the general argument is age, size, maturity, and, the way that they're still growing internally, with the growth plates, and they're still, coming of age, and their body's filling out, and all this, that, and the other. Another big argument is a child cannot possibly have the abilities of an adult. And in essence, is that true? Maybe in some cases, not all cases, I don't think. I'll get into that later. Another motive against junior black belts is because this is a self-defense. Could a child actually take down an adult? Many of the arguments against say that there's no possible way a child that is much smaller than an adult could take down a bigger adult attacker, a fully matured attacker. Then there's the argument of curriculum, which that's one I think I'm going to cover in a whole different podcast because it gets kind of ugly. Adult versus kid merit. Do they hold the same essential rank, being a junior black belt versus an adult black belt? And many of them get really, really upset that they believe that a junior black belt means the same exact thing as an adult black belt. So the arguments for junior black belts, I feel personally, far outweigh the arguments against. So for starters, let's get one thing straight right off the bat. Any karate school out there is a business, and anyone that says otherwise isn't running one. Simply based on the fact that schools have bills. They have to pay for the building. They have to pay for the electricity, the water, the merchandise, the pads, all the equipment that's within. They have to pay for that stuff. So in essence, it is a business. The ones that aren't are wonderful. They're great outreach projects, and they help out people that are less fortunate to be able to learn something in life. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But the majority of karate schools out there are, in fact, businesses. So anybody that says, they're more of a business than a karate school, well, all karate schools are businesses. At any rate, that's another one of those subjects that I'll save for another podcast. But having said that, I believe the arguments for having junior black belts is, A, it keeps kids interested. If they are continuing to move up the ladder and seeing achievements and accomplishing goals, then they're going to stay in for longer. And if they stay in for longer, another argument would be that their skills are going to improve over that course of time. Whereas if a kid gets to a point where we won't promote you to black belt because you are only such and such an age, there is a very good chance that that child quits with the belief that there's no further for them to go until such an age. And they'll tell themselves, well, I'll come back when I'm that age. And then when they hit that age, they have already found things to take the time that they were putting into their art. And I think that is a very, very viable argument, because in this modern era, time and kids do not really coexist well together. Kids in this day and age have been brought up in a world of now, now, now. Everything is now, now, now. I want my food now. That's why we have microwaves. It cooks in, a few minutes versus an hour, hour and a half in an oven. And everything on the phones that we have these days, iPhone, Android, they're smartphones. And if you don't get your page up in a split second, they start closing out and retrying again until it happens that way. That whole time thing is a really difficult situation to traverse, because if you want everything right now, then patience and the ability to wait diminish. And as that diminishes, so does attention span. And the attention span is going to deplete, and they're going to quit because they believe they have no further that they can go until they get to whatever age the system says you can get a black belt at. Another argument for is, and I've seen this personally within the system that I teach for, I have seen some kids, some teenagers, some kids on the older end of childhood that could absolutely drop an adult and display far greater skills than some adults that I've taught. That absolutely holds water. I think every karate school, at least I believe every karate school has seen that somewhere along the line, where you've had some adult students that are, let's be honest, subpar. And you've seen some kids and teens that are just prodigies. They're absolutely amazing at what they do. They can make the moves look dynamic. They can put power behind them, and they can stick those stances, and everything looks as it should. But we're willing to give the adult the black belt and not the kid, because that adult is an adult. They have surpassed that age. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. But at the same time, I can understand your system has a governing body, and that governing body determines who can and cannot be promoted to such and such a belt after such and such a time. I'm not going to put in numbers, because that is a whole nother argument. People will argue, 2 years is too soon, 3 years is too soon, 5 years is too soon. It is whatever the system determines. And quite honestly, I'm a firm believer that no artist, instructor, or system governing body has the right to determine for everybody what the correct age, correct determinations, correct requirements are, because it's not your system. Each system has their own governing body that determines the rules of that system. And I think if somebody can fulfill the requirements within that system, then they deserve to be promoted. And that is my personal opinion. I believe that, whatever your system is, if you follow that system's governing body, then you are in the right. And it doesn't matter which right that is. If it's, Taekwondo and karate have they're two different styles. They have two different governing bodies, and they have two different rule sets for promotions. That's fine. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the people that are in each system are following along the requirements of that system. They don't have to follow the requirements of the karate system or the kung fu system or whatever system is out there. So that, I think, is another viable argument for junior black belts, is that, if you're in a system that allows kids to be promoted to black belt, so long as they fulfill the requirements, promote them to black belt. Do I think that it holds the same merit as an adult black belt? In some cases, maybe. In other cases, not so much. It's one of those gray areas because I know for many systems, the one that I train in included, our junior black belt system does not equate to that of an adult black belt system because our program has a dedicated children's program and a dedicated adults program. They're two separate entities. And as you go through the kids program, you promote your way up. We do have junior black belts, and they have levels of junior black belt. And then once they move into our adult system, they have to go back and relearn all the stuff that they missed from the adult program before they can promote to degrees of black belt in the adult program. So there's a complete separation there that that equates to two different definitions of black belt. And is that important? Yeah, to me it is, because that's the system I'm in. To you, maybe it's not, and that's okay. It's whatever your system determines is the proper requirement to promote. That's what I believe. That is my opinion on it. Now, going back to age, size, all the other arguments. With age, if a kid can fulfill the requirements of the black belt and they can, do whatever is necessary to acquire said promotion, I firmly believe that they deserve the promotion. I've seen kids that can, run circles around adults in doing katas, forms, whatever you want to call them, the applications that go along with them, weapons forms, all kinds of different variations of what might be necessary to promote. I've seen kids that can do it far better than some of the adults. I've seen adults that can do it better than kids, so how do you distinguish who deserves it and who doesn't? As far as ability goes, that kind of falls into what I just talked about. There are kids that are outstanding that can do things that I can't even imagine. There are things that I can do that many kids can't even imagine and are enamored by. And that is fine and dandy. But if a kid has the ability, if they have the cognitive ability and the motor skills to be able to complete the requirements necessary to promote, I say promote them. As far as the defensive aspect, and this is the one I really want to kind of dig into, because I have a unpopular view on this, and if you have a different one, that's perfectly fine. I would love to hear it. Drop that into the comments or whatnot. But as far as defense goes, the big argument being, there's no way a kid can take down a full-grown adult, so why promote him to black belt? Well, I say in this instance, it's based on who are we talking about is the attacker. In most cases in real life, if we're talking, real life scenario, you're not going to get attacked by a fully trained martial artist, military person, someone that is fully trained in fighting. Typically, what we're training for are two different things. Number one, we're training to have targeted attacks. And that means that we are aiming for specific parts of the body, which we in our system refer to as vital areas, vital spots. And those can be devastating no matter what size you are. And those targeted attacks being on specific areas of the body are basically based around the idea that a smaller person needs that advantage to take down a bigger person. That's the whole premise of kind of what martial arts was originally meant to be. It was for a smaller person to be able to take down a bigger person, to give them a slight advantage in a fight, in warfare. So we look at this as using a dedicated strike with enough force to hit a vital area on the body, which will result in doing the most amount of damage with said technique. And I think that's really important to understand, because in that essence, a smaller person can take down a bigger person, regardless of, their age. Yes, some kids are not as strong as others, but then again, so are adults. They're in that same boat. So, kind of predetermining, your X age, I'm not going to promote you until double X age, I think is a little overboard with the concept of time in versus skill. And I think there's a big separation in opinions regarding that. Skills are something that you practice many, many times and get really, really good at. Time in doesn't necessarily mean that you have gotten better. I could spend an hour in a class. If people are just talking, I'm not doing anything and I'm not getting any better. Now, granted, that doesn't happen in the majority of karate schools. I would love to say all of them, but I'm sure there's one or two out there that are, kind of off the beaten path, and that's fine. They do what they do. But when it comes down to it, if you're not training, you're not improving. And the distinctive property of improvement is fine-tuning the movements to hit their dedicated targets. And those movements have such finite details that it takes many repetitions to do so and to get it to target that specific area over and over and over every time you throw it. So that takes work, that takes a lot of work. And there's a lot of concepts that are discussed and a lot of concepts that are taught, but unless the student goes home and practices them or, goes to enough classes and practices them repetitively, they're not going to improve in that skill. So skill-based versus time-based, two different things. Maybe I'll cover that too in a future podcast. But the big thing as far as kids is keeping them in. The longer they stay in, the more interested in the arts they become, the more they're going to want to practice, the more they're going to increase their skill. And I think another end of this is celebrating their success versus, shortcoming on the fact that they are only such and such an age. And I don't want to specify age and all this, that, and the other, because every system has a different virtue regarding, or a different tradition regarding what age they can do what. So I don't want to specify, because I don't really want to upset the masses by saying this age and this age. It's not that big a deal. The fact that there's an age limit, that's the question mark. But at any rate, I believe we should be celebrating success as opposed to, shorting people on the fact that they are a certain age. If your system has a tradition in place that allows for a junior black belt, I think that's a great thing. It gives a kid new material to work on, which keeps them interested in the martial arts, which keeps them excited, which keeps them practicing. And the more they practice, the better they'll get. Whereas if you don't have that carrot out there in front of the horse, chances are they're not going to want to continue to practice. Let's be honest. You can say that, well, you need to have such and such a time in, but at the end of the day, if a kid doesn't see a way to promotion, then what's the point of doing it for a child? That short attention span gets to a point where they're like, well, I'm not going to get any further anyways, so why am I doing this? And that's a really sad thing to see. Because I have seen kids that I swore would be lifetime martial artists because they were that good. And when they got to a point where they felt that they weren't progressing anymore, they quit. And when they quit, all of that hard work that they put in, all of the hard work that their instructors put in, just went to the garbage can. Sure, it's going to carry with them for the rest of their life. And hopefully, God willing, they took some of the characteristics of the martial arts teachings, the respect and the self-discipline and the control and all that. Hopefully, they take that with them into life. But all of that training that they did, promoting their way up to whatever pinnacle they got to and could not go further, it's just a shame. It's a crying shame. It breaks my heart to see it. I've had kids in our program that I swore up and down they would be lifers. They would be future instructors, maybe even future school owners. And when they got to a point where they felt they weren't progressing, at the pace that maybe they preferred, maybe should have been, they quit. And then, all of that hope for the future, all of that future instructor, future owner stuff went out the window. Where maybe if things were put in place that they could have achieved different milestones in between those bigger ones, perhaps they wouldn't have quit and they would still be going and they'd still have that possibility of future aspect of instructor or owner. Last thing I'll say though, in my personal opinion, it's not a disgrace to promote a child or teen if they show the capacity to complete the requirements of their system. It keeps them in the program. That time in is going to help them improve on their previous material as well as the new stuff that they're learning. And maybe you have to create new things for them to learn. And that's okay. Because in the end, it's a point of keeping them in the martial arts and keeping them training and giving them more and more better skills to add to their repertoire and to their life. That's kind of what I see the martial arts as. It's not just a self-defense thing. It's not just a sport thing. It's not just a, mental or spiritual thing. It's all of them. It's a lifestyle. The entire thing is all balled together to create a better fighter, a better martial artist, a better person, and a better competitor. It's not just about one or the other. It's about creating the whole package. And if creating new material keeps interest, keeps them in the program, that is a super important thing to do, because if they quit, they never get better. If they quit, they never get better. And it's a shame when you put so much time and effort into a student, or when the student puts so much time and effort into being the best that they can be, to fall short because of their age. Maybe create a kids-only program. Maybe install basics into that program, and then when you get into the adult program, you have the more advanced stuff. Whatever it takes, I feel like we should be doing. And I know our system does that constantly. We are constantly evolving and putting into place things for people to succeed, not just older people, younger people as well. We have things in between black belt degrees that people have to accomplish to get to that degree belt, because as they see that progression, it keeps them energized and ready to go. It keeps them interested and practicing and getting better and better and better. And I feel like that is a better route personally than saying, no, you're not old enough to get blah, blah, blah belt. For me, it just seems illogical. If you have the capability to perform whatever is necessary to promote, you should be able to promote. And I know time in is a big deal. Some schools are 2 months, some schools are 3 months per rank advancement, some are years. And whatever your system, whatever your chosen art is, as long as you follow that timeline and you can complete the requirements, I feel like you should be able to advance to the next level and start learning the new stuff. I'm not saying, if somebody's a prodigy and they learn your material in a week, promote them. What I'm saying is, if they fulfill the requirements to promote to the next level, say, whatever the time scale is, 3 months, 2 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. If they're in that long and they can perform the necessary material, I feel they should be able to promote. I don't know that, holding them off and, making them stay on that level is going to be beneficial to them or you. Sure, they'll get better at whatever concepts are within that level, but at the same time, they're going to grow bored of it, which means they're going to stop practicing it, which means they're not going to get better at it, and then probably quit because they don't feel like they're getting any better. So anyways, that's my opinion on this subject. I would love to hear yours. If you have a differing opinion, I look forward to seeing it. I do hope that it comes in a respectful manner. I know a lot of martial artists have a lot of testosterone and ego involved, but if you step back and really look at it, I think we can all be civil in our conversations, and I try to be as much as possible. I don't go out trying to rip into people because of their viewpoints, but just understand, if somebody attacks you, you're not going to sit there and let them continue to attack you. So why would I? I'm gonna give the respect that I am given. So be respectful in the comments section. But I love hearing differing views. I love all things martial arts. I love all aspects of martial arts. I love all viewpoints of martial arts. I don't like the disrespect, and I don't think it does the martial arts justice, because we are based on a system of respect, self-control. So just keep that in mind as you are giving your opinions. I think it's important for us to play the role of higher ground, so to speak, in that the laws in our land are for the bare minimum of living a decent life. I believe the martial arts is a higher standard, and I think we should all hold ourselves accountable to that standard. So I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I got plenty of others on the way. I got lots of controversial topics I want to cover, as well as some really, really good ones. And I'm really looking forward to this year's podcasting. We're going to have a lot of fun. So thank you for being here. I hope you all have a phenomenal, awesome day. Later.